Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer video, and today we're going to be talking about the best cards in Duskmourn. I'm very excited to share my list with you. So, we're going to be going over 12 cards specifically today. These are just the 12 cards that I think are going to be having the most impact on the Pioneer format. You know, I usually go with like 10, but if there's a couple more cards that I really like, I go ahead and add them to the list here. So, I've got 12 cards, and again, you're probably not going to agree with my list, and if there's a really good card that I forgot, or you know, if you think my list is out of order, let me know in the comment section below. What do you think about the list just as a whole? So let's just go and hop into it here. So number 12, the last card on my list, but still very good. I have Demonic Council. So simply put, if you have Delirium, this is just a demonic tutor. I mean, like, again, I don't know if this is going to be super good in Pioneer, because I remember a couple years ago when they printed Grim Tutor, and I thought Grim Tutor was going to be just absolutely insane, and it doesn't. It literally sees 0 play, which, I mean, there is a difference between 3 mana and losing some life, and 2 to just needing Delirium and then being able to have a Demonic Tutor, but I don't know, it's pretty good. The tricky part is if you don't have Delirium, it is search for a demon card, which could be solid in like a, you know, a mid-range deck that just happens to play a few demons or something. I'm not sure. I don't know about this card. I had to put it on the list because, I mean, it's almost Demonic Tutor. Like, I have to put it on the list. So that's why I've got Demonic Council at number 12 on the list. All right, number 11, I have Come Back Wrong, which I don't see a lot of people talking about this card, and I can somewhat understand why, but here we go. Okay, so the floor on this card is it's a 3 mana sorcery speed murder, which is definitely not good. But if a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under you control, sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So hypothetically, like, let's say you're a mid-range or a control deck and you're playing against, you know, like an aggro deck or something like that. So worst case scenario, let's say your opponent's playing some really sweet creature with haste. Boom, you kill their creature, it gets haste, you attack, whatever. You know, let's say it's some really good creature with a nice enter the battlefield ability, like a Cavalier of Thorns, let's say that for instance, or something like that. Just any creature with any solid ETB. Like, in a perfect world, if our opponent has Atraxa, and we come back wrong the Atraxa, we get its enter the battlefield ability. I don't know, I think it could be pretty solid. We'll see what happens going forward with this card, but I think with how creatures look in current Magic, there can be some really big blowout potential that you can do with this thing. So we'll kind of see what happens, but Come Back Wrong is number 11 on my list. All right, number 10, I have Rite of the Moth. So this card is just a pretty solid reanimation spell. It's 4 mana, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So obviously the finality counter is a downside. You know, if it dies, it goes away forever. So it's not like we can just keep reanimating it, but it also has a flashback. So it kind of has like Unburial Rites, you know, vibes to it a little bit, which is pretty sweet. So I don't know. I think this card is pretty sweet. We rarely ever see 4 mana reanimation in Pioneer in general. You know, they're starting to finally, you know, they went from like 5 mana with like, you know, oh, put 2 counters on it or do this, to like now we're starting to get instant speed 5 mana reanimation. So now they're starting to creep a little bit into 4 mana reanimation. We'll kind of see what happens, but if there's a reanimator deck in Pioneer, I know that this card is going to be a part of it. So that's why Rite of the Moth is number 10 on my list. Number 9, I have Exercise. I think this card is just super solid. It kind of reminds me of just like how they're starting to push some really good uncommons that are sorcery speed, but they're just so strong. So 2 mana, exile target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. Keyword on that is exile, which is pretty sweet. So it kind of reminds me of like pick your poison a little bit. You know, it's a sorcery, you know, you got some instant speed ones, but you get the sorcery speed, and that's kind of what Exercise reminds me of. Like, usually this effect is like 3 mana and typically an instant, so now it's 2 mana, but it's only a sorcery. But I still think this card is going to be really good in a number of different sideboards. So Exercise is number 9 on my list. Number 8, I have Marvin Murderous Mimic, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what this card is going to do. I don't. This is just saying that I think this card will have some pretty spicy combos in the future. I know that obviously you can definitely do some really good stuff with Agatha's Soul Cauldron with this thing, but again, I don't know what this card is going to do. I don't. I mean, it just has that combo ability to it. So, simply put, it's number 8 on the list just because of speculation. I think that it's going to be pretty solid. I wouldn't be surprised if down the road there's some really silly but solid combo deck with Marvin. So, we'll kind of see what happens moving forward. All right, number 7, I have Unidentified Hovership, which this card is sweet. It's very similar to Skyclave Apparition. So it's a vehicle. When it enters, exile up to 1 target creature with toughness 5 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner manifests dread. So I think this card is good, but the really big downside is it can only hit creatures. So Skyclave Apparition, only hits non-creature or a non-token permanent with like mana value 4 or less. So this can like hit more, but in a way it hits less because it can only hit creatures. But I still really do like this card. The being a vehicle is nice. It's got flying, crew 1, which is really, really easy to crew. I don't know. We'll kind of see what happens with this card, but I still think it's going to be pretty solid. Maybe there's like a world where like even Grease Fang maybe wants to play this type of card. Because I mean, heck, like if you're not doing the Sky Sovereign, like if you don't have a Sky Sovereign or a, Seeker's Chariot, or if you just want more removal in the sideboard, maybe you bring this in and, you like exile something, you crew, you can just chip in for 2 and then you bounce it back to your hand. And on a later turn, you can just play it again and exile something else. I don't know. It could be pretty cool. We'll kind of see what happens. Sure, they do get to Manifest Dread when it bounces back, but whatever. It's just Manifest Dread instead of the really good creature that was already there. So Unidentified Hovership is a solid card, and that's why it's number 7 on the list. All right, number 6, I have Screaming Nemesis, which is my personal favorite card from this set. It's just a better Boros record. 3/3 for 3 with haste. Whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any other target. If a player is dealt damage this way, they can't gain life for the rest of the game, which would have been probably pretty solid against Amalia combo, but hey, now Amalia's banned, so who cares? No one really cares about it anymore. But I really like Screaming Nemesis. I think it's just a solid threat. 3/3 for 3 with haste. I feel like some mono red Obosh decks are definitely going to be playing this in the format just because they want more 3s. And this thing is really hard to answer just because it's like if you chump block, you still get some damage. If it could trade up, like if it's a 6/6, you attack for 3 and then boom, obviously you do the trigger, you deal 3 damage to the creature. I don't know. This card just seems absolutely sick. I know I'm going to be playing a lot of Screaming Nemesis, but we'll kind of see what happens moving forward. It could kind of just be a random solid card, but I think it's going to be really good. And that's why it's number 6 on the list. All right, top 5 here. We're getting into the really, really spicy cards, which I'm almost guaranteeing we'll be seeing some play in the format. Like these cards, I'm definitely very, very sold on. So number 5, I've got Split Up, which I am not excited to play against this card. It's going to be fantastic in control decks and mid-range shells. 3 mana, choose one, destroy all tapped creatures or destroy all untapped creatures. This card is going to be so good. It reminds me of Extinction Event a little bit, where you kind of like can destroy like half the board kind of thing. Situationally, the whole board. I just think this card is just absolutely nuts. I mean, against other aggro decks, most of the time you're going to name tapped creatures. But, if there's like a weird board stall going on and no one's really attacking, then boom, untapped creatures. Like, I don't know. This card just seems absolutely bonkers. It's a 3 mana board wipe in white, which is weird. White does not get 3 mana board wipes literally ever. Like, usually only red gets those, and it's damage based typically. So I don't know, we'll see what happens, but I think this card is going to be good. I think Split Up is fantastic, and I'm personally not excited to play against it since I love playing aggro decks, but it's going to be really good. Split Up, number 5 on the list. Number 4, I have Popular Egotist. So I think this card is good. Main reason just being because whenever you sacrifice a permanent, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. It's a pseudo Mayhem Devil for Golgari food sacrifice decks. So obviously before, if you wanted the Mayhem Devil-esque effect, you had to splash red, but now you don't technically have to because now there's just Popular Egotist, which is mono black, which is pretty cool. We'll kind of see if the Golgari food decks do end up adapting this. But the other reason I also like this card is because it's very similar to like the Aristocrats deck. They play the the Cruel Celebrant, I want to say that's the name of it, and then there's the Zulaport Cutthroat. Maybe they potentially add this into that. Maybe I personally, I don't see why you wouldn't, just because you already have a bunch of sack outlets with like Woe Strider, and then you could also play this. I don't know. I think it could be pretty good. I think Popular Egotist is going to see a lot of play in the format, just because now, if you're not playing red, you don't have to play Mayhem Devil, which is really, really cool. So, Popular Egotist is number 4 on my list. Number 3, I have, if it'll tell me, there we go, Ghost Vacuum. Man, maybe it was just the Ghost Vacuum was just, that's what was causing the delay. I don't know. Ghost Vacuum is really, really sweet. I think this card is probably the card in the set that I feel like we'll see the most play in this set, like in the other Eternal formats. So Ghost Vacuum, we can tap it to exile a target card from a graveyard, which you never usually see that cheap of an effect to exile a specific card. Usually it's like target opponent like exiles a card from their graveyard or something. It's never exile target card. So that alone is already really, really good. And then for 6, we can tap it to sacrifice it, put each creature card exiled with Ghost Vacuum onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. And they're all 1/1 spirits. I think this card is absolutely nuts, especially if you're playing against like for instance, I guess let's talk about Modern for just a random second. Like, let's say we're playing against Living End and we just keep eating all their creatures, and then late game, boom, tap 6, make a bunch of 1/1 flying copies of all their creatures. So like, oh hey, now you know, like there's like the one where you look at the top 3 and then there's all these other random effects and stuff. It's like you get those and they're 1/1 flying spirits. I don't know. And then obviously in Pioneer, the reason you would play this is really just to hate on at least like sacrifice if you know, get a window where you can start eating some cards from the graveyard. Or if you want to play against Phoenix, you know, you just bring this in like immediately, boom, I'll eat your opt-out, boom, and then you play it, you tap it again, you eat something else. Like, it could be really, really good. The creature side of it's not fantastic though against Arclight Phoenix decks, just because they don't play a lot of creatures. They really just play like Ledger Shredder and Arclight Phoenix. But the main thing is just efficiently keeping cards out of the graveyard, and it's colorless, it's an artifact, any deck can play it, and it's 1 mana. So I think this card is just fantastic, and that's why it's number 3 on the list. All right, top 2 cards here. Number 2, this one is a little bit less exciting, but it is the dual land cycle from this set. I think it's just gonna be a really good dual land cycle. I think they're mostly better than the check lands. These kind of are check lands in a way. It's kind of like if you took a check land and then you mixed it with like the old tainted cards. So like back in the day, there were these dual lands. I think they were from Torment, where it's like you tap it for a colorless, and then you could tap it for like red or black, but only activate if you control a swamp. It kind of reminds me of both of those. The biggest thing with this dual land set is the primary color that it taps for, if that deck prefers that. For instance, like Rakdos Midrange, I think that they would prefer having black as the mandatory, or at least as the primary color, just because you can tap it for Thoughtseize or Fatal Push on turn 1, which is fantastic. I know, me personally, the red-green one taps for red first before the green, which usually doesn't help me because I like to play a lot of green-based decks specifically. But regardless, I think this dual land cycle is very, very good. It's untapped at any point in the game. For instance, like you need a Swamp or Mountain, obviously you can have a basic like that, or you can play like the Rausch's Theater, obviously, as the Surveil land. Also a Shock land, which is pretty good. So, I don't know. I think these cards are going to be really, really good. Definitely pick up the dual lands if you're interested in playing a lot of Pioneer, or really any format. I think these are going to be absolutely fantastic. So, the dual land cycle is number 2 on my list. And number 1, I think for those who really, really know a lot about the set, I think you probably know what my number 1 card is going to be. And I just want to preface, I'm not saying that this is going to be the strongest card from the set. I think that this is just going to be the most played card from the set. And that is... Oh, maybe. Hold on. It's thinking about it. I don't know why it's lagging. There we go. Pyroclasm. I think it's going to be Pyroclasm. It's so efficient and it's so good. I can't believe they actually brought back Pyroclasm in the set. It's kind of surprising to me. So 2 mana, deals 2 damage to each creature. It's so simple. This card hasn't actually been in Standard for quite some time now. It's been a very long time. I want to say since like 2010, 2011, I think was the last time Pyroclasm was actually in Standard, just because it's really, really efficient. So I was joking about this on Twitter, which, by the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter, you definitely should. But how, they just banned small aggro decks just because of Vein Ripper and Amalia being, banned out of the format. And then they just printed Pyroclasm. So it's like they unbanned the small aggro decks just to ban them again. And I'm not saying aggro decks are unplayable in this format now because of Pyroclasm. All it is we're keeping all those super duper small quick ones like Boros Convoke. Pyroclasm is going to help keep them in check, which honestly, I really, really do like. It's unfortunate that like merfolk and goblins and elves kind of gets caught up in the crossfire a little bit, fire, no pun intended, I guess. But I don't know. I'm excited that Pyroclasm's in the format, but I'm also not excited that I know Phoenix is probably going to be playing Pyroclasm a little bit more than they probably will play Anger of the Gods now. But, at least now there's more decision making to it, because in some formats, Pyroclasm is going to be better, but sometimes you're going to have to deal that 3 damage with Pyroclasm a lot, or with Anger of the Gods. It mostly depends on your specific metagame, but I think Pyroclasm is going to be really, really good in the format. It's going to see a lot of play, and that's why I've got it at number 1 on the list here. So that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadia,